Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast, which is part of the GenZ4GD project, which is co-funded by the European Union, and it's aiming to involve the Generation Z with sustainable development. And today's podcast episode will be about Gen Z jobs for climate change mitigation. For today's podcast, we have a special guest here today, Aphrodite Magu, who is an environmental expert, and she's involved in the environmental field in Cyprus. Hello, Aphrodite. How are you?
Hello, Victoria. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm really excited to discuss some things about myself and in general about the environment and climate change and the rest that we will discuss later. I am in the environmental field since I finished high school. I have studied environmental sciences at the University of East Anglia, and then I decided to join a more policy, let's say, section in the environmental field. So I decided to study environmental law at the University of Edinburgh, which it was really interesting. And since then, I am working in different environmental aspects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So currently, what is your occupation? Because I know that you are working currently on the climate change mitigation field. So what are you up to now?
So I've been in different job positions. Right now I'm working at the non-governmental organization at an NGO called Κυκλοοικοδρόμιο, which is mainly the main aim of the organization is about circular economy, is to share the aspects of circular economy and educate people about circular economy. Circular economy is really important for climate change as well because it's a way to tackle climate change. We're working with different projects, let's say, at my organization. So we do have some thoughts about creating, let's say, some libraries with things in them so we can minimize waste. So we work on waste. We work on educating young people. And as a matter of fact, today I'm going to go at the school and educate some people about climate change and the job opportunities they can have.
Good stuff.
In the future, yes, it's really interesting. It's really interesting, though, that they're really excited to hear about these things. We are educating some people about how to use their waste and how not to interrupt the waste management of other people. And in general, we are trying to promote a better life. Let's say that we can minimize the climate change and improve our way of life.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very, very interesting. But apart from working in the circular economy topic and from environmental education, what are the other options that people can work in the environmental sector?
Yes, so there are lots of options. I mean, only me, I have worked in the maritime sector. I have worked with ESGs. I have worked with environmental education. So many things. You can also be an ecologist. You can, because as an ecologist, there are some times that you might need to assess some situations when there are some projects, let's say. So you have to assess a field where a project might be built. So being an ecologist is really important. Yes, environmental scientist, as I am one, you can have a really broad opportunities. You have lots of opportunities when you're an environmental scientist. You can also be an environmental engineer, which being an engineer, you can work with a really different type of energies. And not only type of energies, you can also, let's say, get into some opportunities when you can construct better environmental things, let's say, constructions and infrastructures in general. I don't know, there are so many things.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many pathways to choose from when you enter the environmental sector. But what are the qualifications that you would need in order to be part of this job cycle?
Okay, qualifications. During my life, let's say, what I've seen is that okay, for sure, studying something related to the environment. Studying, it's really interesting. It's really important, not interesting actually, because you get a lot of knowledge on the topics you will study that you cannot get from school. You just, it is preferably to go and study the things that you want to do, to follow, let's say. So to have the first qualification. But other than that, it's a lifelong experience. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was at school, I really liked and I really enjoyed when I was learning things about the environment. For us, it was geography topics, but we learned about about earthquakes. We learned about volcanoes. We learned about famine. And how famine is affected by other factors, let's say flooding and droughts. So these are all eventually connected to the environment and climate change. Yes.
I guess this is a very cool sector. It sounds very cool, like earthquakes, volcanoes, climate change stuff. But we often hear by other people saying, okay, you are studying about the environment. What job are you going to get? And you just said to us, there are so many opportunities. So then why is there this perception of people don't knowing that green jobs exist?
So that's a really hard question, let's say. We're not lawyers. We're not accountants, which has been, I don't know, since I don't know when these jobs are widely known. It's not that environmental science and everything related to it has not been out in the field since, I don't know, 30 years ago. But it has not been widely accepted because, okay, environment, and what do you want to do with environment exactly? As you said, those things. But now I think more people are coming out as environmental scientists and in general people working in the environmental field, in the environmental sector. So as we're getting more and more, we can get also more, we will be widely known eventually. So more people will have the urge and the courage to go out and speak with people and show them what they're doing and show the importance of their work as lawyers, accountants, and doctors do. And eventually, because, climate change is a thing, it's now accepted that it does exist.
And it is a crisis. It's not just climate change. We are talking about the climate crisis at the moment. We have switched the narrative from talking about climate change to talking about climate crisis and a natural catastrophe.
Exactly.
At this point, yeah.
So it's a thing that you see. I mean, like a doctor tries to, let's say a doctor gives you some medicine to make you better, might have a surgery for you. So this is something that you can see. But now exactly with the crisis, you can see what are the advantages of people working in this sector, and you can see what the impacts, the positive impacts might be when those people start working on it and you give them the push to work on those things.
Mm-hmm. Does the government play a role in pushing people to work towards the sustainability and climate change mitigation sector?
The government, you mean the Cypriot government or in general?
In general, because you have the Cypriot government here in Cyprus, you have the European Union that is providing a lot of funds.
Yes.
What is the feeling that you get from the government?
For sure, European Union is really trying to help, especially in the climate change, in the environment, in the ecology in general. European Union is really putting some policies that will and that are forced on governments. So European Union is doing their part. They're doing their part, but governments need to follow. So we now have the RRP.
So what does RRP stand for?
So RRP is Resilience Recovery and Resilience Plan, which has been funded by the European Union. So it aims to push economic growth and creation of jobs. And this will be done in different sectors, not only in the green transition, but because we're talking about climate change, I'm going to discuss about green transition. So yes, this way, the RRP, the Recovery and Resilience Plan of Cyprus, but there are also other European countries that do have this because it's coming from the European Union as a recovery and resilience facility. So yes, this in Cyprus, this plan will try actually to fill in the gaps in the greenhouse gas emissions in Cyprus, in biodiversity protection, and in general the gaps that do exist in the green sector in Cyprus.
Mm-hmm. Have you faced any challenges in working within the environmental sector, or have you heard from your colleagues any difficulties they have faced?
Challenges, it's actually no, because when you do work with people, they do believe in you. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it might be hard to make them understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, they do give you their attention in order to understand what you're saying. Because, I mean, if you work with people that they have no idea about climate change or the climate crisis or what their actions can do to enhance climate change, let's say, trying to understand and explain them some things might be hard for them to get it, because, I mean, they might get some money from it and they will do have lots of benefits from doing something, and then you come and say them, don't do it, or you have to change the way you do some things. But at the end of the day, if you do this respectfully to someone else and try to speak in their language, let's say, they finally do understand some things, and it's really interesting. Yeah, so I think, I mean, this might be challenging, mm-hmm. but it's not challenge.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I get what you mean. And also, what is the type of growth that we will expect the environmental sector to have in the next 5 to 10 years? Are there going to be more jobs related to the environment, less? How do you think they're going to evolve in the future?
We can start from energy sector. Mm-hmm. So yes, we do have lots of renewable energies. Renewable energies are starting right now to be widely used, especially solar panels. But using solar energy, it's not the only way anymore. I mean, there are new energies, clean energies, if you use them right. So, for example, hydrogen production might be something that will be really a job, a work field, let's say, that you can work in 5 years for sure. So let's say alternative ways of clean energy might be a sector. Also, climate scientists, because climate is changing rapidly and really weirdly. When
we are going to need them desperately, I think, in the next few years.
Yes, they will be needed for sure. In my opinion, also insurance companies, but working in the climate sector, I think, in my opinion, this will be something that will change, if not in 5 years, in 10 years, for sure.
Because of climate disasters.
Yeah, so let's say, to explain this more, if you have a climate disaster and you have a flood because of climate disaster, not because you went and built your house on a river, because this happens as well, but just because you were living in an area that it was accepted to build a house there, and apparently due to climate change, let's say the easiest way, sea level rose, for example, and it just came into your house and that's it. You will need to get some insurance for that, because let's say it's not your fault.
Yeah.
But exactly, that's a new idea. It already started, I think, 2 years ago to be discussed, but it will take some time. Other than that, also being, let's say, also working in the policy sector, and also maybe being a politician might do some things. So if you aim and like to work in this sector, but also want to help the environment and the climate change, you can be a politician. You can, if you want to study business, let's say business, it will be really nice, because eventually being a businessman, it will help the environment and minimize climate change, because if you do it right, you can be environmentally oriented. So you can see there are actually lots of jobs. For sure, environmental engineer will still be climbing up.
Yeah.
Yes, and be really, really famous in the next years. as we said before, also environmental science. Also being an economist.
Environmental economy.
Yes, environmental economics might be really helpful because everything is interconnected. So if you want to change something, environmental economics will be nice. And I think I will finish with working at the bank and let's say managing money at the bank, because eventually you can use your money for something else and not oil drilling, let's say. So yeah, this might also be changing in the next years, especially this with the banks and the money. I think in the next 5 years for sure.
Wow, you definitely like make like a boom through my mind right now when you discuss that, especially the final part. And also before we close, because you mentioned before that you are visiting a school after, what is the advice that you are going to give to these Gen Z people that want to study in the environmental sector?
Gen Z, it's a really strong generation because they have to pass through a lot of changes, especially in the climate change. And when you speak with people from the generation Z, you can see that they think of, oh, do we have a future? And I mean, this is really hurtful. But because of that, if they want to work in environmental field, they really must want it, because they will feel really hurtful. Working in environmental sector is really heavy. So if you don't really want to do this, if you're not really encouraged to do it, and you don't have the strong feelings to do it, it will be really hard. So because we're in a let's say era where we really promote do the things you like, I believe that even if you want to save the environment but you don't like the science behind it, don't try to work in the scientific sector, but you can try and work, as I said before, in the politics. You can work in the business. You can work even in the media if you like it, because there's also a really nice push. And yes, I think do the things you like is the most important thing.
Well, I will keep the last part that you've said. And thank you very, very much for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, always.
Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see each other again.